is chapter 8, section 3, and this is the last lesson before we go to the spring break. Now, today we're discussing a new part about Greece, which is the Macedonian people. Now, to start, we need to know where exactly does our lesson take place. Now, Macedonia was an area that was at the north of Greece. If you remember, this was Greece. It was surrounded by the Aegean, the Ionian, and the Mediterranean seas, and it continued north to Europe as well as um, the eastern coast of which is now today the Turkish country. So Macedonia is the start, or where they started was the very top of Greece. It was at the top of Greece. Now the Macedonians, uh, they were of Greek origin, but they were not approved by the Greek people. Instead, the Greeks thought the Macedonians are barbarians because they only cared about fighting battles, conquering lands, and they did not give any importance to science, study, philosophy, or any of the developments that the Greeks did. So, who are the Macedonians? They lived, as we said, at the top or at the very north of Greece. Now, the King Philip was the king of the Macedonians. Uh, Under his reign, he was successful, and he uh, combined all of the Macedonians under one empire or under one region. Before King Philip, the Macedonians were only farmers who raised sheep and horses, and they grew crops. And in case they wanted more, they would fight each other for the territory where they lived in. After King Philip ruled them, Macedonia became stronger. King Philip had great military skills, and in 359 he created the first Macedonian strong army. He had one target, which is to conquer Greece and unite it with the Macedonian area. Uh, King Philip actually was successful in his plan, and he started conquering the Greek city-states, uh, but in a very different, smart way. He would go to the city-states and he would tell them to join the Macedonian king, or be ruled by the Macedonian king, or else he is going to attack them and start a war with them. Of course, the city-states suffered a lot after the Peloponnesian and the Persian wars. So, under the threat of King Philip, most of the Greek city-states joined his rule or empire, except for Sparta and Athens once more. Now, by the time the Greeks uh, discovered that they should be united to find King Philip's, it was too late, and the Athenians were the last city-state who did not join King Philip's reign. They joined with Thebes and few other city-states to battle King Philip's army, but they could not stop his invasion, and in 388 the Greeks and the Macedonians fought one last major battle, which was the Battle of Chaeronea, where King Philip's army crushed the Greeks, and King Philip officially ruled most of Greece. Now, King Philip had one son who was Alexander. Now, King Philip taught him well because he believed that once his time was over, Alexander is going to rule. And in order for Alexander to become a great ruler, King Philip got him the best teachers. Aristotle was one of Alexander's teachers. Um, he taught Alexander all what he needed to know about science, philosophy, politics, rhetorics, and all of the other sciences. Not only academically, but by the age of 16, Alexander was serving as a commander in the Macedonian army. He quickly won the respect of the soldiers for his wittiness, smartness, and of course, a great physical ability. They admired him for his bravery and military skills. After King Philip's death, of course, Alexander was ready to fulfill his father's dreams and expand the empire. Now, Alexander's role model was Achilles from the Trojan War. And King Philip always taught Alexander that in order for him to become like Achilles, he needs to be smart, brave, and always seek for conquering, because if not, someone else is going to conquer and take his empire from him. In the spring of 334, Alexander led about 40,000 Macedonian and Greek soldiers into Asia Minor, which was the other part or the other coast of the Greek Empire. He went into the Persians' territory. Alexander's cavalry, who are the soldiers on the horseback, proved to be the stronger force in the army. They fought in the battle and they crushed the Persian forces. Now, Alexander's forces continued to march across Asia Minor until they ruled all of the Persian Empire. So, the green area that is highlighted is the area that first started as the Macedonian Empire and then continued with the rule of Greece and then Asia Minor and then the whole Persian Empire. So Alexander kept expanding until he controlled all of the Persian Empire. One thing to note is King Darius III was forced to run away from his city because of the strength of Alexander's army. Now, Alexander also continued his conquering to Egypt. In Egypt, he built a a new city known as Alexandria, and Alexandria became one of the most important cities in Egypt. And it was called, of course, after Alexander the Great. It became the center of business and trade, and it became one of the most important cities in the ancient world. And it still remains ancient up until today, and it's still found in the Mediterranean region. Now, Alexander kept increasing his conquest up until late 331, where the army refused to continue further. They were tired, they were exhausted from the battles and the conquering, so they refused to proceed. Frustrated, Alexander went back to his empire, to his main place, and once he went back to Macedonia, Alexander, out of exhaustion and some say out of heat and sickness, was struck by a very strong fever which led to his death. Now, Alexander, of course, was a great general who feared nothing and left a great legacy. But he only died 32 years old, ironically and epic-wise, just like as his role model Achilles died in the Trojan War. Now, the key to Alexander's courage was his early education. As a boy, Alexander was taught all the Greek epics about uh, the wars and the battles, which gave him enough imagination and strength, and of course, enough power that was later on developed with physical skills. Alexander's armies ruled over a very vast region, but after his death, uh, a new era started forming, which was known as the Hellenistic era. Hellenistic means like the Greeks. The Hellenistic era refers to the time where the Greek culture spread to the non-Greek people that Alexander had conquered. Now, Alexander united the Macedonians, the Greeks, the Egyptians, and the Asians in his new empire. But upon his death, these empires began to divide or began to disagree. So instead, these empires decided to form a new empire which called themselves the Hellenes, and a group of people who served in the governments of the Hellenistic kings decided to rule this area. Now, by the year 100 BC, Alexandria in Egypt became the largest Mediterranean city in the world and in the Hellenistic Empire. It included excellent harbors and a very ancient towering lighthouse that still stands up until today. Alexandria was filled with the largest libraries, which contained the greatest collection of books of writings in ancient times. The Hellenistic kings also created new cities and created new military forces and posts, and these new Greek communities supported the arisement of architects, artists, engineers, and philosophers. The Hellenistic Empire or the Hellenistic rulers encouraged the Greeks, Macedonians, Egyptians, and Asians to settle together in one region and focus on something other than military conquerings, which was the development of the empire itself. This was the end of the lesson. Please go back to the video and write your own notes. See if you do not understand anything. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.